Remember, in one class we have discussed about four theories of praise, which were founded by Sebert. Okay, so in line to that, I will be adding two more theories, which will give you a very comprehensive understanding of the four theories plus six theories in relation to development journalism and role of media in developing countries. Apart from that, I will be discussing about the news structure, okay, which is very very important, and news values. In the very first class, I guess one or two values I have discussed, but it is very very important to understand news values, and especially for those who are not from communication background. You are from communication background, so you know what makes a newsworthy. I'll start with the news values then. Okay, so you know about news values. Do you know what is called news values? Okay, news values are those elements which will make a news newsworthy. So we always talk about newsworthiness in the news. You see, in a newspaper, not each and every piece of the story will go to news whole in a newspaper. So in traditional newsroom, when you say traditional newsroom, which is not that converse, which doesn't have a website also. Okay, now also in newspaper, they do not consider all the stories coming from the day. They will actually consider some of the stories, and those consideration is based on the news values. So there are certain elements which will determine the newsworthiness of the story. So those elements are very very important to understand a news story and also to write a news story, and why a newsroom will pick some stories for for publications and for publishing. Right, they will pick certain stories for publishing. So not each and every story will come into the news hole, and their stories are based on priority as well as legitimacy. Okay, they will also choose some of the symbols, some opinions, some views, and all those opinions, views, symbols are based on the priorities, based on a legitimate ranking. And this legitimate ranking and legitimate priorities will also form the newsworthiness of the story, and that will actually form the news values. Now, there are some elements that will determine the news values of a story. Element number one is oddity. As I have already told you, oddity is weirdness. Weirdness or oddity, when I say, you see, oddity or weird, weirdness. Okay, weirdness is there, and oddity, as I in the very first class I have told you that man bites a dog. Okay, definitely form a story because it has that weirdness element. It's very weird. Man bites a dog. Dog bites a man will not create any kind of sensation. But some weird element, if a story will involve, so definitely it will make a story. What will definitely it will make a news, make a story a news. So it is very very important what will make a story a news. Okay, so oddity or weirdness is one element that will make a story a news. Okay, just because of, you see, as I have told you, uh, in northeastern state, like even in northeastern state, in few states they usually, like you see, this is a part of the ethnicity that they eat dogs. Okay, so this is also related to ethnicity and cultural importance. But newsroom will actually look at the story from those elements, not from, like, ethnicity, importance of ethnicity, not from the culture even. They will actually look from that element, and that is called oddity and weirdness. And the second one is, you see, this is called the prominence. Prominence is associated with the elite. See, if I die, I will not make a story. Elite group. But if definitely associated, if I and with someone from this campus, it will not make a story. But yeah, definitely, if a minister will die, chief minister, prime minister, whosoever. So definitely he will make a story. So it is all about the prominence. Elite will always capture and the captures the attention of the audience, right? So prominence will always make a story. Just like oddity and awareness, prominence will also make a story. Third is, you see, human interest. Human interest is very, very important. When we talk about this human interest, prominence involves everyone, elite group. When you say elite group also form of this celebrities. So media always confers status on the celebrities. So we highlight their lifestyle, we highlight their status, and we are conferring their status. Highlight their status. We have given them a status and have given some you see some element to even identify ourselves with them. So in a way, we are conferring status on elite. We are conferring status on this elite. We have been prominently highlighting their day-to-day life, their lifestyle. In that way, we have given prominence to their status. So you see, prominence is always associated with this elite, and elite form the politicians. Elite also forms the that what celebrities and even the expert also from the elite. When you are talking about different source of news in this university also, you will talk about different source of news, scientists, experts, they also form the elite. When you talk about the human interest is another element. Okay, it is basically this related to, you see, uh, related to your feelings. So when you actually read a story and you encounter an incident that will make you feel sad, make you feel happy, and it is also equated with that question, how do you feel? Journalists usually ask a question, how do you feel? And which is also a very embarrassing questions most of the time. But a journalist is quite habituated to ask that question, how do you feel? Okay, so it is also equated with human interest because whenever he or she does a story, it has to be related to the interest of the human. Okay, hence it is also related to interest of the human, and human interest also forms another very important element of newsworthiness or element that will determine the news value. Then we talk about human interest involve drama also. Many a time it is also said drama constitutes a different element. But not necessarily drama will constitute different element. Most of the time, human interest also involves drama. So, so whatever dramatic, it will actually taken by human interest. Something dramatic, any sensational story, like we talk about this crime, so drama involves in that. Okay, even you see, um, in case of photography also, we always look for children, because some dramatic elements always involved with their their activities, right? So that emotions is quite named, their emotion, their activities, their their act, the way they play, the way they talk. So that nakedness and innocence is there. So as that innocence is there, so it also makes us a bit sensitive and emotional at the same time, and that will make a story. Okay, and then you see, after that, we also have a conflict. Drama, conflict, these will come. Conflict is another element. When you say conflict, it is very important from development journalism angle also. So everywhere you will actually see a conflicting element. So if you analyze a policy, so nature of policy will determine some of the conflict, because not necessarily that policy will satisfy all the claims and needs of the society. Societal needs and government claims are always different and always in classes. Okay, so when you analyze a policy, for a development journalist, the scheme of government, project of the government, so you'll try to find out the conflicting element so that it will make it more relevant. Okay, so conflict, man versus nature. Okay, there is a conflict when you talk about development versus environment. So building a road or building over that overbridge, okay, or flyover will not be counted as a development if it won't cater to the environmental interest. That is one thing. Okay, so conflict is another element. Then fifth element is a very very important, and fifth element is timeliness, as I have already told you, timeliness. When you talk about this timeliness, conflict not only not only be limited to man versus nature, so it is also man versus machine kind of conflict. So in from development, for a development journalist and from development angle, so you need to have an eye to look at this conflict everywhere, and that's how you can create a human interest for the story. Okay, so these are overlapping also when you see human interest. Human interest basically what interests you, what triggers your emotions, triggers your sensitivity, your sadness, happiness, your empathy, sympathy. Okay, that is what is human interest. A story which will trigger this empathy, so that will definitely make a human interest. So any kind of story on community development of the community, or even scientific research which is being conducted in the university will be a development news, right? That will be part of development journalism. So you need to find some conflicting element. Okay, but definitely news structure will also matter. So a hard news story will not give you that much space to cover this conflicting element. But a feature story will definitely give you that conflicting element, that space to cover that conflicting element. So you see, development news or you see development journalism has also different structure, not necessarily will follow the inverted pyramid, which is the core structures or chief structure of writing a news story. But for development journalists, you prefer more about the chronological writing structure or a narrative writing. Uh, so there are different structure to write a story. So you will need to find out where to fit the conflict. So justify this element and how to justify this element. Then we talk about this timeliness. Timeliness. So for different newspapers and also different periodicals, timeliness will also differ. For weekly newspaper, timeliness of the story or how recent the story is will be determined by the last edition or maybe over the week. So anything happened in the week, in this week will also go in that newspaper, in a weekly newspaper. So how recent the incident is depend upon the orientation of that newspaper, orientation of that uh, you see media house. Okay, so they are producing you see artifact or paper for like weekly audience. So there's a weekly one, there is a daily one, and also when you talk about the CN, like this the television broadcasting, timeliness always vary because timeliness depends upon how swiftly you break the story. So timeliness varies from outlet to outlet. Basically, when you talk about the newspaper, 24 hours will be the timeliness. Anything happened in the 24 since the publication of the last edition will be like recent event which will be considered for the news whole. But for you see for a television station or for a broadcasting station, so timeliness will be count anything happen in the last half an hour because they are going to broadcast the breaking news. So the breaking news is the norm. It is also norm of the day, and that's why timeliness will be like different for a television station or a radio station. Okay. And for a weekly magazine, timeliness will definitely vary. So over the week, whatever has been happening. So if it publishes in Monday, so whatever happened in the last Tuesday, like last Monday also, will be relevant from the recent point of angle. So recent, how recent a story is will be determined by the orientation of that newspaper or that media house. So that is timeliness. And then we talk about the proximity. Fifth, six. Six is the proximity. When we talk about the proximity, proximity is all about the nearness of the city. Okay, whatever is happening in the Guwahati will always matter most for the audience than something happening in the Thekiajuli, because most of the news houses are actually placed in Guwahati, and for them proximity lies in the city areas, then something happening in Thekiajuli. But at the same time, along with proximity, what we count is magnanimity or impact. Magnanimity or impact or consequences. Consequences. So it's very, very important. The impact and consequences. Suppose if a bus wreck has or bus accident killed 30, 40 people, will have more impact than a car accident killing two people if prominence is not involved. Okay, so this three element is also connected with prominence. If prominence is not involved, common people, two people are killed in a car accident, who are two common people are killed in a car accident, will be less newsworthy than a story which will involve 30 people killed in a bus accident because of the number, because of this impact and magnanimity. Okay, and the bus accident happened somewhere nearby Guwahati will always make a story. Then a bus accident happened in Tekiasuri. And even somewhere in the main city, and then in even like outside, or is there in even Patna, it will not make a story for us. But something happened in Patna will definitely make a story for Patna newspaper. Then something happened in Guwahati or in Tezpur. Right. So that is proximity is related to this nearness of that event, and how you see um, how local element are being justified. And most of the time, from development angle, we need to justify the local council authorities as a source, because we usually go for those council authorities for stories, you know. So local council authorities form a very important element of source for, you see, development journalists, because most of the time they also employ some of the, you see, news releases. They employ even um, some newsmaker who will act as a buffer to interact with mainstream journalists as well as, you see, the government and other decision makers. I'm talking about the local setup, local authorities. So they do have also separate, like, councils, and they employ a press person in order to create a buffer and in order to communicate their information to the mainstream journalists or to even government and other decision makers to ensure representative. Okay, so you also need to think about the proximity. Proximity is the nearness. So there will always be stories which is happening near to your locality. So proximity is related to nearness of the story. Magnanimity, impact. Suppose you see at the same time, so A is in a shootout, a 2 or 3 years old girl was killed in a shootout between uh, two gangs. Girl is being killed. Uh, will also make a story, because why? Because emotion is involved, right? And emotion is a human interest. Okay, although this impact is less. Impact is less because it has affected one family, right? So to certain extent, impact is less. If you think from news perspective, because these are this news element by which a newsroom will decide the newsworthiness of the story, because so many stories usually come, you cannot even entertain and take all the story into consideration, so they filter out some of the stories, and these are the values which will help them to filter out some of the stories. Okay, on the basis of, okay, timeliness is there, happened recently, I'll take it. involve, you see this prominence, definitely it will make a story. Prominence, prime minister, chief minister, and they have attended a event, have also given a speech in this event, so definitely they will make a story. Or talking about any developmental schemes, chief minister is talking about developmental scheme, will make a story. Okay, so this is also from development journalist angle. Okay, so because that also involve a campaign, so campaign for someone's right. So campaign is a very important source at the same time. Okay, so that's how to make a story. And you talk about human interest. Because human interest everywhere is very important, like element of the news. So anytime when you write a story, there might be overlapping of two, three elements, not necessarily one element. Human interest is always there in each and every stories. To become a newsworthy, uh, human interest will involve. But you see, human interest, to understand the human interest, what is important is also to understand the pulse of this public. It's very, very important. Hmm. So, and it keeps on changing. Pulse of public keeps on changing. Okay, so you see this impact. So, currency is one element. Currency. So currency, when people is talking about some incidents, so it will definitely make a story. Okay, they're talking about any event, any movement, something happened. Now still people are talking about car. So car is now outdated. Okay, but still you have found that in Facebook or in couple of network, people started talking about some car, and that issue has regained. Issue may not have regained the importance, that issue may not have regained the importance, but yeah, some statement might have made that has also captured the eyes of journalists. They can make a story. Although it is outdated, it is irrelevant now. Okay. So that's how you can actually see this news values are important and news elements are important to understand a in news, how newsworthy a news is. It is very, very important. So we have discussed about, so it's 12 o'clock now. We have come just now. Well, no, he had some problems, so I went with him. No matter to so to buy the allergy tablet. To buy the allergy tablet. Allergy, okay. So we have discussed about some of the news elements. So you go through those elements. These are very simple elements which will make a news newsworthy. Okay, we started with this auditory awareness, then prominence, then human interest, conflict, timeliness, proximity, magnanimity, impact, consequences, and last one is we have that currency. Okay, so these are some of the elements which will always make a story newsworthy. Wordiness, as I have told you, so the simplest example I have already given you. Last prominence in terms of elite. So media persons and the journalist always driven by this interest of this elite, they will always give much more prominence and importance to elite, because elite will always make a story, be it prime minister, chief minister, or a national NGO, as well as you see celebrities. Okay, so even the industrialist will always make a expert from this university, scientist. They're also in this elite group. Okay, they will make a story because anything they does, even scientific research and prominence. So they will make a story. Okay, so prominence from elite point of view, any kind of expert research. So definitely they will have that prominence. So university is also a very important source of news. So from prominence angle, you can also see in university, in, see there are large scale of research and development has been going on. So it will be a very important source of news. And it will also fulfill this news balance prominence. So, and then this human interest, what will, as I've already told you, what will trigger when news trigger the sentiment of the and also emotion and sensitivity of the general public. That is human interest. Conflict is important, very important element from even development point of view. We have conflicting element in most of the policies and schemes. So whether it is actually able to meet the need of the people or not is very, very important. So conflict is very important element to determine the newsworthiness of a story. And then timeliness. Timeliness is another important indicator to determine the newsworthiness of an event, and it varies from, you see, newspaper to newspaper, and it actually goes by the orientation of that newspaper. So, and also whether it is daily, weekly, or it's a radio station, it's a TV station, it's a newspaper, so timeliness will be varied. So I have discussed how timeliness will be varied. Then we talk about the proximity. Proximity is counted as a nearness to this, like, to the media house. Anything which is near to that media house. So Guwahati will definitely make more story than you see any of the rural uh, uh, rural areas. So most of the time, hence it is also a kind of misconception. Yesterday, day after yesterday, we have discussed that there is a misconception among the mainstream journalists about making a development journalism a routine activity. So it is a misconception, and hence they said that so we usually report, like, development activities of the government. But yeah, report the development activities of the government, but they don't report about rural areas, development difficulties, and aspirations of the people. Okay, so in that way also when we talk about the proximity element is not like, entertained, or even it is not made by from development point of view. Okay. And then this magnanimity, impact and consequence, these are also some element. When you talk about the impact and consequence, it is very, very important element. So how impactful a story is will determine how that incident has affected people. How many number of people, like, get affected, 30 people, 40 people, 50 people. So increase the magnanimity, or it has actually say, killed, an incident has killed 30 people, 40 people. Will make a story that an incident killed 2 people. Okay. Same timeliness for radio will vary, TV will vary. For TV, half an hour. Anything happen in the half an hour will make a news. Anything happen in any last 24 hours will make a news for newspaper. And anything happens in last 7 days will make a news for a weekly paper. Like that way. Okay, so these are some of the element, and currency. Currency is the last element. So where we actually talk about currencies. So it is not. So it is the last element. So according to currency, when we are talking about any kind of um, event, when public is giving importance to an event, any kind of event, any kind of issue, any kind of fashion, that becomes a currency, and that will constitute the currency. So you're talking about a fashion trend that will also form a currency. But from developmental angle, you'll have to link it to a community, perhaps, who is creating something has been talked about in the media. Suppose it is a very new one, new fashion, and you can relate it to the origin of that fashion trend. Okay, origin of the fashion trend, then you will have to find out the background information about the fashion trend, background, where it is originated, how it is originated, need to give a timeline of this, relate to the community. So it will not come out of nowhere. So it has to have some creator, or some of this art element is associated. So the community which is also attached to that fashion trend. So it is very, very important, and that will create a developmental story if you give prominence to that community instead of giving prominence to an elite. Okay, so prominence to a community who is marginalized, about whose creation not yet highlighted. Okay, so it is very, very, it will form a very, very important development. And so when we discuss about those very elements, so those very news element make a news, like newsworthy, these are news values. And for development journalists also, these elements are very, very important. It's not like that you have got a separate set of elements. Okay, these elements will be similar across all the fields of journalist. Okay, so we have different types of journalists, and this journalism also varies in terms of media. Okay, and in terms of its orientations. In development journalism also we have different types that we have discussed already. Okay, so that actually depends upon how they look at the issue of development, and to whom they are affiliated with. If they are affiliated with the government, they will be pro-government. If they are affiliated with the poor and you say marginalized, they will be pro-participation. Okay, if they are affiliated with the existing system, they want to affirm the status quo, they will be pro-process. So there are different types of development journalism we have discussed, like pro-process, pro-people, pro-participation, and pro-government. And also you talk about that investigative development journalism, bohemian authoritarian development journalism, as well as we also have scientific, technological, hmm, technological, um, uh, socio-science, socio-technological development journalism. When we talk about pro-poor nature of development journalism, pro-poor, pro-participation, not pro-poor necessarily, so pro-participation. So when you talk about participation now, okay, you have got this news values, okay. Now, as I have already told you in the very first class, we discussed about those four theories of praise, right? Four theories of praise, but the very first theory is authoritarian theory, right? Second one is libertarian. Third one is social responsibility. Sorry, the Soviet media theory. And fourth one is social responsibility theory. Apart from that, apart from those four theories of praise, we also have two more theories. One is uh, development media theory, and another one is democratic media theory. Now, when you talk about this development media theory, this is basically in relation to, you see, this development communications or development media. So development communication is not something different from development journalism, because this is much more broader approach than you see development journalism. So we actually see that this actually talks about development communications, and also about the use of different communication practices, strategies, process in the international development. Okay, so here also it ensures the flexibility of use of some of the communication techniques and principles and strategies in order to bring development. So when you talk about these two additional theories, that actually says that four theories could not justify the development communication or development journalism. And hence, it is important to also bring these two theories. So they are inadequate to get about this equitable information flow, to understand the relationship between the journalist and the state. These four theories are not that sufficient. And hence, we have got two more theories. One is democratic media theory, and another one is development media theory. Democratic media, not democratic participants theory. And another one is development media theory, which will help you to understand um, the, you see, development journalism, uh, and the relationship between, the government and the journalism, and also to know more about development in the journalism. Okay, understand the meaning of development in the journalism. So the fifth theory is, you talk about this development media theory. So media theory, so it actually shows some of the flexibility of application of idea theories, and at the same time it also says that the overriding objective of the media is to contribute government and also help government in nation building. That is the overriding example. And they have also, this theory has characterized um, the nature of these developing countries, and that's why making media relevant to bring to think about development. Like they said, that developing countries, as in the last class also I have discussed about it, they lack that hardware and software. They do not have communication infrastructure first, and all the developing countries are committed to, like, speedy socio-economic development. Okay, and also they do not have culture producing artifact. That is also one thing. Okay, and so basically, these are some of the element, and also most of the developing countries identify themselves uh, similarly, and they have an awareness that okay, we lack these infrastructures. Social development is required, economic development is required. So they identify themselves with this, like, neighbor countries who is also developing countries. So that identification of interest, similar interest, also make them, uh, you see, make them adopt this development media theory or theoretical framework to justify the role of media. Basically, these theories are important, which will help you understand the role of media in one particular society and how they are dealing with government. Role of media in a society and how they are dealing with government. So it encompasses even the social change. So development media will encompass social change. It will encompass social marketing. It will encompass media advocacy. It will also encompass. It will stress upon the mass mobilization. Okay, it will also encompass this communication for social change. One is social change, behavioral change is one, behavioral change, because it has been stretching up on the behavioral change of the community. It has been stretching up in use of some technique, the social marketing, through which the benefit could be distributed. I'll be discussing about social marketing. It has been bringing about attitudinal. It has been stretching and focusing upon the attitudinal change of the masses, which is required. And even from modernization point of view, and also it is quite important to make them understand some of the lapses of development, um, so that they can understand the lapses, they can identify the importance of development, they can identify the importance of understanding the developmental needs and their needs in their life. So most of the time people don't even know how to identify the need. They do not know what they need. So it is very, very important to make them understand. Also important to distribute the benefits of the development. Also make them understand the need through some strategies and process. So that will be even discussed through social marketing is important, and that I'll discuss later. And then we have also, it will encompass the media advocacy. Media advocacy very, very important. So we try to equate advocacy with, like, devil's question. So advocacy, you will advocating a cause. So in campaigning, you are advocating animals' right, you are advocating environment right, right of those, for as well as uh, so there are not many cases of development. I'll be discussing because this is just a preliminary classes, no? So I'll be coming to discussing those cases. So there will be rigorous understanding of development. And so we or exchange, rigorous exchange on development. Okay, so when we talk about this development media theory, so it will actually promote the role of media in nation building, role of media in alleviating poverty, in generating employment, in generating awareness about employment generation, and also about controlling family, um, or creating awareness about family planning measures and all. So basically, and let me tell you, and fruitful application or successful application of development media depends upon development media theory depends upon the role of government in intervening the subsidies, in intervening, carrying out various subsidies, direct control, and also carrying out censorship. So in authoritarian theory, so you see, media censorship is highly being promoted by this government. Government won't let media to publish anything. Uh, without the you see, without the permission and alliance of this government. So government need to permit, then only media can actually publish something. So in authoritarian media theory. So without the direction and without the permission of the government, media doesn't have any role to publish any item. And censorship is largely prevailed upon. And freedom of media is completely curtailed down. So any information can also be withheld if it will not support the government and it will go against the government. Any attack of the government will also lead journalists to even die and also put in prison or even arrest. Okay, so that was the role of authoritarian media theory, which will actually say role of media in an authoritarian state and role of press and government. Okay, so in that case, so we also you see that Soviet media is also an outgrowth of authoritarian theory, which will help to even promote and sustains the government, the party in power. So here you see what is the role of you see development journalism in an authoritarian theory, an authoritarian state, or in a democratic state. Now let me tell you, it is always different, right? The second one the second edition was democratic media theory. Democratic media theory is pro-participation. So, which whatever we have discussed as a part of citizen journalism will also be justified and evaluated by democratic media theory. So, we talk about this democratic media theory. Democratic media theory will help you to understand the diversity of the media, plurality of the media, and also low cost media, decentralized media, which are not professionalized, because this media theory will oppose the professionalized media, high cost media, centralized media, and the monopoly, media monopoly. So it will always get emphasized about the plurality of this media, low cost media, okay, and the citizen media, grassroots journalism, alternative media, okay. But you see, it did not get legitimacy. The theory itself did not get legitimacy as per Dennis Maxwell, famous communication theorist. So he himself said that this theory did not get legitimacy in the academic circle because some of the elements of the theory has already been found in other theories. Okay, so it is very, very important, and I'm discussing this theory today because there is also a question related to this. So when we discuss about the Sabots and Wilberson's theory of praise, libertarian theory, we talk about the freedom of expression more and more. But in libertarian theory also, freedom of expression is equated to ownership right, proprietor's right. And that's why it is also not meant for development, not meant for developing countries. Authoritarian theory is actually not meant for developing countries, for India even, and not meant for development journalism. Hmm. Even this libertarian theory is also not meant for development journalism, although it is talking about and even for developing countries, because not necessarily there is an equitable flow of information everywhere. When you talk about the flow of information is not simply restricted to north to south. Okay, so when you talk about the modernization approach, so flow of information can also be seen from north to south, right? So that is the flow of information being promoted. So we get that flow, we get the message, and we modernize us. Okay, we change our lifestyle, right? The message come from the west will change our mind lifestyle, and journalists will promote the message. So development journalists will also promote the message which will come from the West. That is what modernization theory said. Even authoritarian modernization theory is a different approach. Dependency theory said that okay, so they have questioned it. Dependency theory questioned this modernization trend because it actually undermined the cultural autonomy of the nation. Hence, from dependency framework, if you look at the role of development journalists, so definitely you can question the modernization trend because it has already undermined the cultural autonomy of the community. And from structural, that is imperialism, we actually see that there is a feudal interaction more as there is no participation among the masses. There is no interaction among the periphery. So a developing country don't even know about the neighborhood, what is happening in the neighborhood. So it actually promotes even this development journalism. A trend of development journalism is a part of the westernization effort, try to um, create more solidarity among the regions and having more and more regional cooperation, strengthening this regional cooperation like Asian, like SHARC, through which developing countries know about the happenings in those countries, neighboring countries. Okay, and role of the development journalist is also report to what is happening in the neighborhood countries and how it will also affect the nation. Okay, so it is very, very important. From that point of view, also theoretical point of view, also it's very, very important. The role of development countries from the structural imperialist point of view is also to make make audience, make reader know about what is happening in the region, what is happening in the neighbor countries, and how it is affecting the nation building process of India, of the country. It is important. Okay, and that is also a de-westernization cult. Okay, so it is important. Now, democratic media theory is important. It is talking about the participation, as I have told you. In one video lectures, I have discussed about the citizen journalism and alternative journalism and how it is different from mainstream journalism. Now, you cannot even say that development, all the development journalists are citizen journalists and they are advocating for an alternative framework. They are advocating for an alternative framework, no doubt. But yeah, so we are trying to get a space in the mainstream journalism, more and more space in the mainstream journalism. Right? There is less space in the mainstream journalism because of the misconception that every, you see, only the disadvantaged core will form the development news, not necessarily, but and also you see there is a restriction of the mainstream journalists to report development. Um, at times report development in terms of the activities and like schemes and you see project of the government that has actually restricted the um, flow of information for development, for forming a development news, as well as that has also restricted the space of development news in a mainstream news. First, the newsroom consideration of development as something related to disadvantage people, which will not make a prominence. Second, which will not effectively trigger the prominence, which is the newsworthiness. That is prominence is one of the element which will make a story newsworthiness. And the second thing is that they will always look at development for something which is sponsored by this government. So that is a misconception and bias and prejudices which is prevalent and also available in the newsroom. That has somehow, you say, somehow, somehow not giving that much publicity to development journalism. Okay, so this two is fine. So you also edit, you also make an addition to this theory when you write about the four theories of press. Okay, then we will briefly discuss about news also. We briefly discuss about the news. You understood about those citizen journalism, no? I don't have to repeat. Okay, it's fine. Uh, the news structure. Okay. You know about the news structure. When you talk about the news structure, basically, it's very, very important to understand the news structure. We know essential. Have you encountered this word essential? Is and tail. Is and tail. So this is the word basically. Essential. Essential means keep it short and simple, or keep it short and stupid. That is also another word. Keep it short and stupid or keep it short and simple. Okay, so key sentence. That is the and news has to be like it is also said that news has to be short and simple. And but at the same time there are also other criteria of news, not in terms of newsworthiness, how a news should be. News has to be a balanced, comprehensive, and it should be fact-based, right? And it should be put in a logical order. Facts should be put in a logical order, and news should not have a personalized account of the journalist. So it should not entertain the personalized account of the journalist. So when you talk about the news writing structure, so all these elements need to be taken care of. Okay. News writing, the very first news writing structure is the inverted pyramid. You know, basically all the hard news follow this structure, inverted pyramid. So that is, you see this. This is the inverted pyramid with a broad base and a pointing tip. So you have that news. So inverted pyramid news. So with a broad base and pointing tip. This is the first structure. When you talk about the structure of news, we have this inverted pyramid with a broad base and a pointing tip, and most important information will go to the top, and the least important information will come to the bottom. So, and here also you write phase-wise or stage-wise. The very important information will come in the very front of the story, very first of the story, following the next important information. Then at the last, least important information, which can also be chopped off. Okay, so this is also this has a history. This is also related to the history when there is no computer. So earlier, editor used to cut or chop off the paper through scissors and try to feed the columns, and news which are not relevant usually go cut from the bottom. Okay, so that is related. That it is not some concept. It is not a very recent concept. So it has been followed since newspapers become popular. So it is also related to the very technicalities of the newspaper. So it is easier for news editor to cut these stories from the bottom and also fit the columns. And hence they have followed this inverted pyramid. Okay, so if you look at this structure, so there is a descending order of importance. News are also placed in a descending order of importance. And this descending order of importance is also followed by 5 Ws, 5 Ws and 1 H. Right? 1 H. When you talk about these 5 Ws, that is, one is what? Suppose a fire incident broke out. So what is happening? The fire has broken out. So fire broke out. Okay. So that is what is happening. Then where it is happening? Where it is happening, the location or the building, the premises that have been burned down. Okay. Then when it is happening, the time when it has happened. Then you see who are involved means the casualties, right? And why it is the casualties, who are involved, how many people got injured or killed, and then why we also involve the magnanimity, impact, and the consequence. Then you will actually try to explain the whole incident, whether any insurance coverage was there, whether any kind of, you see, uh, whether they are taken to hospitals. Okay, so basically you will analyze, or you see, after this you talk about how will it reflect the cause. How it has happened, reflect the cause. So cause means maybe tossing of a cigarette butt, so that will has caused the, like, fire. That may be the cause. Okay, why and how it has happened. So you see, inverted pyramid is based on 5 Ws and 1 H. So when you discuss about the new structure, the very first structure is the inverted pyramid. So it is relevant for all the news stories. Although for development news we prefer nowadays this chronological structure and narrative structure of telling a story. But this is, you cannot say that this is irrelevant. This is the relevant news structure which will answer the 5 Ws and 1 H. Okay, so the most any policy-related implications. We'll discuss about this Land Acquisition Act. We can also discuss about this that DBT, that transfer. So that DBT scheme of this government. So uh, where we can actually justify how to write a story here. But for a soft story, that is basically we get to see in a hard story. We cannot put much more information, cannot make a story that much comprehensive. Hence, we actually keep it balanced and we answer these questions. And people do not have that much time also to read the story. They are always there running and reading the story. So get these facts, so very hard facts, easily and quickly. And for that, this inverted pyramid structure will mm, be the most suitable one. Okay, just because people do not have much time. Okay. Then we have also another structure that is called chronological structure. So briefly, I am going to discuss chronological or narrative structure. This is also a kind of created drama. So when a story unfolds, so it will create a drama. So you will write first um, what happened first, what happened next, not like on the basis of IW's one age, but how an event has unfolded. Okay, so you can also develop a timeline. So this has happened at that point of time. This has happened at that point of time. At 11 o'clock, this happened. At 12 o'clock, this happened. At 1 o'clock, this happened. Like that way, you have followed a chronology. And it will reveal the incident more and more. And that's how it will trigger the human interest and emotion of the people. So you'll follow a timeline, a chronology of this event. So first stage, second stage, third stage. Here also stays involved, but it will only unfold the 5Ws 1H. But there, apart from 5Ws 1H, you can explain the story. So what happened, this 5Ws 1H will be there in its stories. But the way you unfold depend upon the structure. And also you will follow the timeline, and that is the focus. So focus is very, very important for news writing. Focus is important, and focus will actually determine how many elements you have taken. You have taken two elements, three elements to write a story. So you can't take more than three elements, let me tell you, when you write a story. You can take one element, you can take at the max three elements to write a story, depends upon the nature of the story. Okay, so this is very, very important. And you see, we also have a personalized. Second one is chronological approach. Okay, chronological approach or narrative approach. First one is inverted pyramid, chronological approach or a narrative approach, narrative approach to study. And the third one is, we have another approach, third one is personalized approach. This is not personalized approach. Personalized approach to understand the story. This is basically not for newspaper. Personalized approach is not for newspaper. Personalized approach is for radio and TV stations where they actually go for a spot reporting. This has happened on the spot. So a reporter's account is being uh, coming out, what to write. What you have experienced, you will say. See, I have seen that or these. So on the spot reporting, we have a personalized account. Normally, personalized account is not seen in the newspaper. Okay, but in a column, you can get to see a personalized account when you write a column. But in a newspaper, you are not eligible to write a column now. But when you talk about a feature involves some of the interpretation because it actually lacks the timeliness, a feature article. And any kind of soft news, it will lack the timeliness, hence it will also, you see, involve interpretations and not necessarily the opinion, interpretation of what has happened. But for writing an op-ed, writing a column, you need to get some experience. But for a magazine, so definitely your hobby or your desire or aspirations might also get fulfilled in terms of writing column or a feature. So okay, these are some of the elements. And regarding the qualities of the journalist, this is also very, very important. Uh, What are the qualities of journalist? Okay, let me tell you one more thing before we go to understand the qualities of journalist. What is important, let me tell you. In this news structure, to write a news structure, we also have three elements. We know we have inverted pyramid, that is a news writing style. We also have another style, chronological or narrative story writing style, and we have personalized account style. And this actually form the news structures. And basically, if you also see that you can have three elements found in news structure. One is intro, second is lead, and third one is end. And over above you have a headline, right? So headline is always very abrupt and startling because it needs to make you stop and think. It needs to make a reader stop and think. It covers the entire it actually it will tell you what is covering in the story. Okay, so structure will be followed by headline, then we have the intro and a lead and an end. Okay, so in intro and a lead, so here the most relevant information will come. Okay, the most relevant information, important information will come in this intro and lead. And headline, when you talk about this headline, headline has to be very abrupt, very startling, so that it will capture the attention of the people. Normally, headline is the copy reader's province. It is not the reporter's province. Reporter usually don't make the headline. So copy reader usually make the headline. Okay, so headline will give you an idea what has been covered in the story. Okay. Then we also talk about, we briefly talk about the qualities of the journalist. Should I tell you? Oh, no, because I'm also finished because I need to go to pick up my kids. Okay, I'll finish it today.